Alright everyone, I'm back with the third part of my series talking about DJI, the American drone market, and the Trump tariffs. So in the first video, to sort of summarize, I talked about what I see as the two warring camps within the American drone market, which essentially is the pro-DJI side and the pro-lobbying the federal government side. So there's the people who think we should just keep using DJI drones no matter what, and the people who think that we need to replace DJI drones at all costs, including basically eliminating the free market and allowing the federal government to sort of subsidize, for all intents and purposes, these major drone manufacturers who wouldn't really be, in my view, competing in a free market. They would just be sort of these quasi-fascist state, entities, in a way that is sort of similar to what DJI is. And that reflects the dual-use nature of drone technology as part commercial and also part defense and military. So that was the first video. The second video, I talked about the middle ground within the American drone industry, which I see as people who recognize that neither of those warring camps is correct, that we can't continue to use DJI for everything, including law enforcement. We can't use it at a federal level for defense. We can't be using Chinese components for military FPV drones. People who recognize that, but at the same time are dissatisfied with the solution of saying, okay, there's going to be this exclusive list of drone manufacturers. Their products are going to be absurdly overpriced compared to what the Chinese products cost, and also what other companies can manufacture in, let's say, Europe or India. So people who basically reject Skydio, reject Brink, these companies that are really only surviving based on their lobbying efforts cozying up to the federal government. So people who say both of those are bad are what I would call the middle ground. So what are those people aiming at? And honestly, that's what I think we need an alternative to those two things. If we want to live in a free market economy, and you have this sector that's maybe the most important emerging technology sector, it certainly encompasses aspects of all the major technological breakthroughs from on the aviation side, but also on the AI robotic side. Drone technology is going to be at the forefront of all that, and are we really going to just cede those industries to the federal government and allow them to essentially do what they've done with these major defense primes, which is just run up crazy prices and deliver a product that isn't really that effective? That can be seen by the results of the last couple wars. We basically didn't do anything very successful except make these defense contractors extremely wealthy. And of course, that is political opinion, but I think there's quite a bit of evidence to that effect. So if we don't want a repeat of that in this next generation of warfare, then I think we need to have a free market drone industry where lots of different companies are able to compete, and not just compete within the US, but at a world stage where the products are affordable and they're also better than their counterparts. And that includes the DJI products, that includes the FPV drones that are mass produced with Chinese, it's windy out here, without Chinese components. So that's where I'm at in the series. What I want to talk about today are the obstacles that we face in order to achieve a free market drone economy in the US that's competitive. So I'm going to basically run through those, and then in the next video, after I go over what those obstacles are, I'm going to go over how I think the tariffs are going to impact whether or not we can overcome those obstacles in the US. So that's my roadmap here. The first major obstacle is just material cost. Okay? The material costs of the different drone components is a huge gap that we need to bridge right now. And so what are those different components, right? First, you have the lithium batteries is a major component. Okay? Arms getting a little tired. I gotta get some, we'll get some better AV equipment here in the future. But so the lithium batteries are essentially vital to what modern UAS technology is. Now there's some alternatives, but right now the whole industry is essentially depending on Chinese lithium batteries. And I think, that's a whole nother video really talking about how lithium is sourced, everything that goes along with that. But that's probably the major material cost right now that the US can't really deal with, is the lithium batteries. But there's also the motors. So there's metals that go into the motors. That's a big problem. On top of that, the gimbal and camera technology. So everything that goes into the camera technology. And then you have the chip technology. So, people know quite a bit about that with what's in the news, but even, withstanding the semiconductor tariff or whatever, that's not good. Withstanding that, all these different material components are much cheaper being produced in China right now, and we're really not able to compete with any of these different components and that's why the American drones, that is one of the reasons why the American drones cost way more. Okay? Not necessarily why they're not as good. I think there's other reasons why the drones aren't as good being produced by the US manufacturers, but one of the major reasons why they're more expensive is because the motors are cheaper. And the motors are cheaper. I'm gonna have to pause for a sec. All right, we're back. So the motors are cheaper. Cameras, I think the cameras is one people underestimate. It's interesting, DJI and Autel apparently share a camera distributor in China, but that's a major component, especially for those Mavics and that sort of thing. Basically, some of the smaller drones, those gimbals and cameras are coming just way, way, way cheaper than anything we could produce in the US. So you have all those components, and those are driving down the cost of the Chinese drones substantially. But there's another component that I think drives the cost that we don't necessarily acknowledge as much, and something that I'm not even sure that tariffs necessarily are going to solve this issue. And that's really the cost of labor. And it's not just the cost of manufacturing labor, the people who are putting together the drones, it's also just the cost of the engineers. And even the cost of the sales force and the executives. It really just gets into a much deeper issue. I want to credit this guy, Bobby Sakaki, on LinkedIn. I hope I pronounced his last name correctly. Who I really see as a pioneer of this middle ground I'm talking about, one of definitely the most outspoken people in the drone industry. And he does a very good job of highlighting this in some of his posts, where this whole Silicon Valley software as a service venture capital ecosystem is not translating to being able to produce hardware, being able to produce a physical product like drones. And it's not really being able to translate to a lot of things. I mean, when you have Skydio based in California needing to pay software engineer $300,000 at a minimum, and the guy is willing to do that for $60,000, probably the equivalent $60,000, $80,000 in China. I'm guessing there, but I'm sure you could research that and figure out exactly what the difference is. I mean, it's just not. It's not a sustainable difference, and the cost shows in the product. And just on top of that, and I would like to make more videos about this, because I definitely feel like I've experienced this in my own life and situation, but just the way these startups work and how the venture capital flows in, it just seems like the money is getting lost, right? It just seems like it is like this game of Monopoly, and no one knows what the actual value is. No one knows where the money is. These valuations are just these, in many cases, figments of people's imaginations. It really seems like that at times. And so you end up in this world where it's like, okay, what are we going to charge for a drone? Well, we don't have enough consumers to actually have a profitable company, so who knows, and then we'll get the federal government just put an order in for $1 billion, and then we'll have a valuation of however billion, but we can't actually produce that many drones. So guess what, they're gonna give the $1 billion grant to someone else now. It's like this game Monopoly, and this game Monopoly, right? It gives these people, these executives, these sales executives, these engineers, these massive salaries, but it doesn't translate to a profitable company, and it certainly doesn't translate to a competitive product on the open market. So I think that's a huge issue and a huge obstacle that companies that don't have this federal piggy bank cracked open to them are going to have to contend with if we're going to have a competitive American drone industry. And I think that's an issue that is beyond the pale of just the drone industry, but certainly affects the drone industry, which is, I think, a vital industry moving forward. So that's, let's see if I can get that to go. Well, we're wrapping up here. So the last obstacle that I'm going to mention before I wrap up the video is just the consumer feedback that DJI has. I think one of the obstacles that American manufacturers are going to have to overcome is just the leg up in feature development that DJI has, and the leg up in just user experience they have from actually having commercial customers that are using these drones at such a wide scale. I think that is going to really make it difficult to close the gap over the next 5 to 10 years for sort of grassroots American drone companies. So that's my synopsis of what I think the obstacles are. Next video, I'm going to talk about how I see the Trump tariffs affecting the playing field, whether or not the Trump tariffs are going to help these middle ground companies succeed and build a free American drone market, or if they're going to actually hinder it. So that's where I'm going with it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks. I'm going to wrap this inspection up and land the drone. See you next time.